everyone. Welcome to the Birth and Body Podcast. This is Bethany Stricker, and I'm just thrilled you are tuning in. I'm a licensed midwife in the DFW, Texas area and serve families through the midwifery model of care by offering preconception counseling, prenatal care, and home and birth center birth. If you are enjoying the podcast, we would love and so appreciate your support so that we can continue offering this resource to families everywhere. Please visit the Libera Pay link below the video on YouTube or in the description wherever you are listening to the podcast. If you're a doula or childbirth educator and desire to further your education, or someday maybe you want to be a midwife, I would love for you to join my Steps to Midwifery group where we study cases and go into detail about all the things we talk about on the podcast. Visit my website at bethanystricker.com for more information or to join the Steps to Midwifery group. Our guest today is Jessica Wiggins. She's a member of our birth community that serves as a doula while also working her corporate job. She has a really interesting perspective doing both, and she shares about her journey into doula work, finding a mentor, and serving at out-of-hospital births with midwives. And you can find her at theprayingdoula.com. Welcome to the show, Jessica. Thank you so much for driving all the way over to Dallas to be on here today.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to have you because I feel like you have a unique way of coming into the birth world that maybe was like roundabout, unexpected compared to some people. I'm really excited to hear about that story. And then I feel like you're unique in that you attend a lot of births with midwives. And that...
Is that unique?
I think it is. I mean, for the majority, if you think about how many midwives there are compared to there's not as many midwives. So, and I feel like it takes a certain skill set when you're attending a lot of home or birth center birth.
Sure, I can see that. I'm
excited to hear all about it.
So,
yeah, tell me how you got into it initially.
So I got into birth work. It's a long roundabout story, but I'm going to give you the shorter version because it took me almost, I've been attending births for like 7 years. But there was a church in Louisville I was attending. And there was a lot of new families and growing families, and a lot of them didn't have family members like close by.
Yeah. And
I had been praying for a child for a long time. And it's really interesting because I did get a child. He just was 5, or no, he was 12 at the time. But, I met him when he was 5. And so we ended up getting custody of him. And I was like, okay, I'm supposed to be a mother. This is like an incredible time in my life. And the Lord impressed on me, I want to rapture the birth space again. I want to take it back. There's so much fear. There's so much worry. There's all this thing in here. And the only thing that I knew was intercessory prayer that could really change atmospheres. And so, but I knew nothing about birth, right? Okay, you want me to do what? Because that's awkward. I've never birthed a child, and now you're calling me to this space. Well, with a lot of the families, because they didn't have, anybody in the area, I would just pray over them. And after about 4 or 5 of those, one being, actually today is the 7-year anniversary of the first birth I went to. Which is crazy that happened today. Aww. I was like, oh my goodness, he's 7? That's crazy. I started to realize that, I didn't know a doula was a thing. And a nurse had asked me oh, are you the doula? And sometimes I would just be in, the waiting room praying or journaling. Sometimes I would watch their kids for them, just being the community, right, for the people. And so this nurse asked me, are you the doula? And I'm like, I need to look this up. Is this some sort of witchcraft? I don't understand. And so I'm Googling it, trying to figure out what it is, and realize oh, it's a woman who serves women in childbirth. And I thought, okay, yeah. So that started 7 years ago. And then as it kind of grew, I was researching, and I got so many just visions of what the Lord had for the birth space. And I had to really have that vision clear of, okay, why are you calling me here? What does it have to do with atmosphere? All this kind of stuff. And a lot of it was cultural, fear. And then in general, the purpose of birth and why women are going through this process and how the surrender process, just what you see women, how strong they are, what they're, they're being birthed as moms. And so then I found a doula who I knew was awesome. Yeah. And I stalked her on all of the places and basically got her number. Such a weirdo when I think about it. Got her number and said, hey, let me buy you coffee. I really want to meet you. I think we rescheduled 3 times. which is important, that anybody who wants to get in it needs to be patient, because this is like a time, their time's precious. And so met with her a few times, talked to her really about like logistics. Like, I didn't know what a doula did. I knew that, okay, yeah, I can pray in a birth space, but they have to be doing something else if it's like a real profession.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, decided where I wanted to get trained, and started taking births after that. Awesome. So it's a little bit different, because in my mind, I thought it was important to know what God was calling me to do and have my vision really clear of what that was. Two things that mentor said to me was, don't be a rogue doula. And
what does that mean?
Like, where you just, conquer the world on your own and try to do it. Like, you're not getting into the birth community. You're not talking to other doulas. You're not getting versed in what your community is needing, and just doing it on your own. Like,
lone wolf, kind of.
Lone wolf. She said, don't be a rogue doula, and then don't get in the politics of the birth world. And at the time, I didn't know. Like, I was like, what do you mean the politics of the birth world? But she had some good wisdom on like things to kind of steer clear from. And I've held those pretty solid. Not getting engaged in like certain Facebook groups or whatever. And they can be great resources community wise, but they can also be really toxic too.
Yeah, for sure.
So having that vision, and then I blogged about it to remind myself. Yeah. So I only have 3 blogs. 3 blogs on my on my website for myself.
They're gorgeous though. Like I'm just gonna say, when I looked at your website, I'm like, this chick has amazing branding.
I have really good friends.
I'm like, it just totally drew me in. I'm like, I felt like I knew your story and your heart just from your homepage. I was like, I need to redo my website now.
I have really good friends. I had, my friends that did my website, they were starting their digital marketing thing, and they said, let us do it for you.
Yeah, it's
and
beautiful.
And then I bug them constantly since then. So, yeah.
How did you decide? I know we have so much we could talk about, but for so many doulas, well, I should say, I get so many inquiries as a midwife. How do I become a doula? And certainly a lot from student midwives too, looking for a preceptor.
Right.
And I usually tell, especially the student midwives, to become a doula first, because it's just so much easier to learn all the clinical stuff when you're already familiar with the birth space and can be in the birth space and already helpful. So I usually, send them a list of certification options, but I love what you're saying about finding a mentor to help you, guide you, because just getting certified is not necessarily going to make you a successful doula.
Oh, yeah, no. No. Well, and I think too is being as a newer doula, for example, and wanting to get into that space. I get a lot of those DMs. And I am always willing to help and like get the message out there and grow. I want doulas and midwives to be just as like a household name as doctors and nurses, right? Yeah. But I also think that it is a responsibility of the person to do the research. They can reach out and get that and have a mentor. But by the time somebody comes to me and says, hey, I really want you to mentor me, my first question is, okay, well, when is your training, and what have you read, and what are you learning? What podcast are you listening to? Because I knew one person who, of course, I stalked and, got her coffee, but she was really good with boundaries too. Like, okay, here are the things that, you kind of like have to, get in the grunt work. And now I do have doulas shadow me, but most of the ones that shadow me have either gone through training, have training planned, they've done the research, they've invested in themselves. And we have a communication going where I know that, you're a responsible person. It's not going to be, if I'm going to put you in front of my client, I really have to be sure of who you are. Right. And I think that's what she did, hopefully. Yeah. or she just was like, I can't get rid of her. So like, let's take her to a birth. But even the expectation, like I went to those births for free. I was on call for free. Like I put it, and I think now there's some who have an expectation of like, well, I'm going to go out and I should be paid for X, Y, and Z. And yes, your time is very important. But if you're asking someone to really mentor you, like there's that, you have what all of the work that you do, like organizing the closet, before you get, that's a Christine Kane comment. Anyway, organizing the closet in like, the church room before you get on stage kind of thing.
Sure.
It's important. It builds character. It shows people that, you're humble enough to really like do this work.
That's true.
So
that's true.
Yeah, I could go on a whole rampage.
No, that's true. I would say that's true for student midwives too, because I get so many inquiries where it's maybe obvious they're just copying and pasting this email to every midwife in DFW. And I'm like, you're asking me to train you to take care of 2 lives and not kill anyone. And you don't know anything about me. And you don't know if I'm a good midwife. So why should I?
Right.
You should want to be like whoever you train under. Like.
Right. And have some... Yeah, if somebody reaches out to me, and that's the other thing is aligning those beliefs. Like you want to train under somebody who aligns with what you believe in. It's one reason why for a really long time, even for my own business, I never really wanted to join a collective or be a part of something that was going to steer me away, because then you start following everybody else's vision. And it's really important, even in my own, like to stay like not the rogue doula. So I did build in the community. And build, you need that community for backups. You need that community for kind of, going through births and kind of, what is the word called? I always say digesting, but that is not the word.
Yeah, like debriefing.
Debriefing, yes, debriefing.
When you see hard stuff, yeah.
Yeah, you need someone to debrief with. And I still have the same, from probably the first month of being a doula to now, I still debrief with one of the same people who, because I reached out and I wasn't that rogue person. And sometimes that's hard to find, but be authentic. Go with what your vision is. That's one reason. I mean, I got a lot of slack when I first came out being called the praying doula, because people thought, well, then you have a certain, like a niche market of only type of people, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. Sure. And so just if you have your vision plain, then you can run with it versus, kind of catering to what everybody else thinks.
Yeah. That's so true.
We kind of side railed into.
I love it, but that's so helpful. Like, I wish I'd tell the same thing to student midwives too. Yeah. Like, if you want a certain preceptor, go after it. Like, don't just cast your net to everybody. Yeah. Like, because that's not the way to get a preceptor or a mentor.
Because you're about to spend a whole bunch of time with that person and, be in the trenches, and you want to be comfortable, confident, and, have each other's back. And if you don't really mesh well,
Yeah. No, I mean, I spend the most time out of any human with my student. Literally. Yeah. Like, it's crazy. We spend so much time together. You kind of have to like each other.
Yeah.
And communicate well. And, save people's lives together.
Yeah.
It's important.
It's like a good recipe for marriage, too. My husband's like, why we married? Because we don't get on each other's nerves. I'm like, 15 years strong. We're good. We're good.
I actually, side note, I had a student midwife call me a couple weeks ago, and she was really struggling. And I really struggled as a student, too. I had 12 preceptors. It was really for 5 years, 4 different practices. I moved to Texas after I 3 years in Virginia. I didn't get signed off for any of that work. So I relocated here, and it took me about 3 years. I started over. So choose your preceptor wisely, because literally every possible scenario that I would be like, run away, I went through for one reason or another. Where was I going with that?
Choose your it's like a relationship, like a committed relationship.
So I was telling this
There you go. Brought you back.
Thank
It's good.
you. It's like 10 o'clock at night, third podcast of the night. And So I was telling the student, like, why are you feeling like you have to stay with this person? Like, feeling like, well, she's going to badmouth me to the whole DFW. I'm never going to get a preceptor again.
Those politics.
All of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, like, would you, if your boyfriend was like that, would you stay with him? No. Like, wait for the right person.
Yeah.
And pursue that person. Get ready for that person.
Yeah.
Do the same thing. I'm like, this makes no sense. Why do we do this? Anyways, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
Like, don't stay in a bad situation. There's plenty of options. And for me, like, my struggle was, I thought, I'm called to midwifery, so I just need to do this. The Lord does not ask us to stay in abusive relationships. Ever. There's nothing about that.
Drop. That's good. It's true. Well, and I think, and there's not like, when people say, oh, that's the Lord's will, I'm like, you don't know the heart of the Father then, because that's not what he wants for you.
He doesn't ask you to stay miserable. Even if it, like, feeling called, all that stuff. I'm like, what is happening? And I did for way too long. Yeah.
People forget that. Like, yes, you have a call on your life. I was just at church with this sermon. Like, you have a call in your life, but that doesn't necessarily mean, like, everybody thinks that, it has to look a certain way, and there's still choice. There's still free will. There's still the option for you to take a path. And if that's the true call, then you don't have to worry about praying and being patient and waiting for the right person.
Right.
So, I think that's important. But, either finding a preceptor or finding a doula mentor, if you just get into your community, like if there's somebody who wants to be a student midwife, start talking to other student midwives. Start getting
to our student group.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun group.
I'm so sad I missed it.
It's okay. You're at a birth. We understand. We get grace.
Next month. Yeah. Join the DFW Student Midwife Hangout on Facebook. Is that what it's called? Join that Facebook group.
I was just added a week ago. So
it's Casey's thing.
I know.
We'll link to it.
Casey, we were having coffee, we were having coffee, and then she invited me randomly, and I'm like, oh, last minute.
I'm glad you came.
It was fun. And that was the only time that I really get to talk to a whole group of student midwives, and ask all the questions that I have for, where my path may lead later. And so getting insight and wisdom. And it's just fun.
That's the best way too. Like, I wish, like, I tell everyone, like, talk to the students of the preceptor you're looking at. Like, why did they finish or not? It's so important. Not to mention schools. It's so hard to
And it's hard to meet a lot of birth people in one area.
Yeah.
It was really, that can be hard to do because births happen. You're busy. Yep. You have families, like everything. So it was a good time.
Yeah. I'm so glad. So. I was at the longest birth ever. Next time. I wished you were there. Okay, let's bring it back around to that. Yeah. So,
you haven't even done a birth with me yet. That's what's so funny. So I'm like, but you haven't even seen me work yet.
I know, but you will. I just know that you're awesome.
No pressure or anything. Better be a bomb doula. You better not, no.
So that's why. So Jessica did this prenatal visit with me, our mutual client. So I'm a midwife, she's a doula. And I just felt like the client, I felt like she was comfortable saying what she wanted. You helped her be prepared coming to the visit, knowing her options. And it just felt like we were a team. Like, it's not like you had to advocate for her, but you helped her remember the things that she needed, she wanted to bring up because you guys had talked about it ahead of time.
Yeah.
And it just seemed so balanced and like it worked well. And afterwards I was like, I've never had that happen before.
That's so weird. See, that's why I was so surprised because I do a 36-week appointment prior to the 36-week appointment. So I'm like, whenever you schedule your 36-week appointment with your midwife, let me know and we'll schedule 1 or 2 days before, the weekend before, whatever. And we go over preferences.
Right.
And I can't take full credit for this because this is a perfect example as to, even if you go through doula training, you don't really know what to do at a prenatal.
Right. No, I felt that way when I was a doula too. I was like, now what do I do?
And then there's different things that people do. Like, you'll have some people who just, let's go over all of the options for the rebozo. okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe you should edit that out. Anyway, then there's some
I rarely use it at a birth.
Right. But what I mean is like they may just do positional, or they just do, maybe they give them all the articles and go over like, here are all your reading tablets for the next. Nobody has time for that.
Right.
So I didn't know what it looked like. And so before I was extra. Okay. I was like, I tried to do that. I had my little folder and this is the thing. Okay. Doulas need to stop being about themselves in the birth space.
Yeah.
And what I learned very quickly on is that this is a humbling job, and you need to humble yourself when you're there. It's not about you.
Yeah.
And yes, your client's going to be heard, but if you just heard when I was in the now I do, because I know midwives and I have conversations with them and, in and out of birth, but especially like with doctors and like how some would be like that to like a nurse. I would never do that. You always address it to the client. If the client says, hey, I want you to be checked, then the next question as the doula would be like, would you like her to tell you where you're at? Or do you feel just comfortable knowing that she knows where you're at?
Sure.
It's a different way of how you work it. And the client is the one that gets hurt in the end. If you can't work as a team, then they're the ones that are going to be
that's so true.
Not getting the best support. Mm-hmm. So most of the time, and I think I even did this in the prenatal, so what I do at that prenatal that I do at the 36 week, I go through all the list and then I write it down in my phone, and I put a little heart next to each one, because I don't always go to the 36 week appointment with them.
Sure.
And I'd say, these are the hearts that you ask them about. These are the things that you ask them about. What is a group B strep?
Right.
What are the options I have for that? I think I even brought it up. Mm-hmm. I think because I was at that particular client, she's like, do the list, which is fine. And if they want me to do that, I'm cool with that.
Sure.
Because it builds that camaraderie.
Yeah.
Did I
totally.
say the word right? Okay.
Yeah, totally.
And that team atmosphere. But they really have to go in with the mindset that, I'm here to support my client. They are also here to support my client. They're not the enemy of the state.
Right.
And this birth is not about me.
Right.
And I mean, let's be real. Birth preferences change in the middle of birth.
Right.
And your job is to as a doula, hear your client, make sure they feel heard. It's a different just hearing them, like make sure they feel heard. So that might mean you ask the question to your client more than once.
Right.
And it can be a little thing from like, you want a water birth.
Right.
And they're on the bed, and maybe you just ask them 3 times, do you want to get in the tub?
Right.
And clients, no, I'm about to push the baby out. Like, let me do my thing.
Yeah.
But at least you were heard. They let them get mad at you. To something even more extreme when it comes to like, maybe it shifts and now we're going into a surgical birth. And so you have to be able to have those conversations to make your client feel heard and valued. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter about all that other jazz.
Right. It's hard. I mean, I think even like with my own students, and for me as a student, I think like, and why I ended up going from doula to midwife was because just some things I saw as a doula, like, and regulating those feelings in ourselves is so hard. When you see things like, that shouldn't have gone like that.
Yeah.
Like unnecessary interventions, especially. Or then as a midwife, I would say it's different now. Sometimes you're just not treated well by clients, and like, or they tell
There's perspective shifts though. So you always have to, even if like a doula is seeing something that they personally would disagree with, first of all, you don't need to put that on your client in the middle of a birth.
Yep.
And maybe there is another conversation you could have later. But there's also going to be a different perspective of what's going on. And if you're always seeking to attack and not seeking to hear and seeking to understand,
for sure,
then there's going to be a conflict.
Right.
And again, it doesn't build the birth community in a good way. Because doulas see stuff, and I have conversations. I actually even have it in my contract now. Wow. That I can talk to based on birth outcome. I have the ability to discuss with medical providers with the client.
That's awesome.
Basically, because I learned, and I didn't want, privacy is very, very important, but I also have it where in the event of this, of whatever the outcome is, if there's like, I can still be an advocate for you or a middle person who just says, well, let me say what I saw. Let me see what you saw. What was your opinion? What was this? And kind of be a mediator.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that helps you also have closure?
Sometimes. I'm
just wondering how, like I'm all about emotional health for birth workers and them being okay. Because I've seen things.
Are you going to do a retreat?
You should do a retreat. For life. That's so my heart is actually doing retreats for birth workers because we have secondary trauma too, and it colors every time you go into another birth. If you're afraid it's going to happen again or what, and then you can't serve as well if that's not healed. But anyways,
that's interesting. So, what Enneagram are you? I'm just curious. Do you know the Enneagram?
I'm probably a 2 wing 3.
Okay.
What are you?
See, I'm a 7 wing 8, and I just don't
That's not somewhere where you want to go. I want to be friends with you so that we can go there. But I do. Avoiding pain.
Avoiding pain. 7. That's why I'm like, what? I don't bring that into another birth. I forgot about it. No, I do. I do think like debriefing, but I had to learn early too. And this was something that my friend told me, who really helps me. She basically was like, "You're not responsible for that birth.
Yeah,
you cannot hold on to the outcome. Yeah, you can be real upset. Okay, and if I've seen things happen that were really inappropriate, I will I will tell my client like, no, this was wrong and you need to say something.
Right.
If you've if we're at a postpartum visit, and I do postpartums like 2 to 3 weeks out, just so they can, figure everything out because it's postpartum. Yeah. And we go through the birth. If they're still hurt by that point, like I'm like, this needs to be discussed. And I try to empower them to have those hard discussions for their relief and be able to get out. But I've had a few hard bursts where, I was crying in the bathroom and like, can somebody just bring me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
Yeah, for sure.
Some chips?
Yeah, for sure.
So I get that. But, I don't know. Lots of prayer. I mean, I'm the praying doula, right? So I intercede. I'm praying in tongues on the way home after some of that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
well, I think that's a good point because that's what most people struggle with with secondary trauma is not being able to separate like that happened to that person, but that didn't happen to me. And their body thinks that happened to me too. So I think that's a great point. Like just being able to say like, that wasn't my birth. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like every time I go to birth, it's not going to happen
Maybe
again.
my 7 Enneagram helps with that. Where I'm like,
it does. Maybe
I don't need to deal with that pain.
Maybe not. We should still do a retreat.
I know. We should. Which I actually bring up Enneagram types in my prenatal.
That's awesome.
For both the mom and the partner that's going to be at the birth. And I make sure that they're there at the prenatal because I need to know, are you walking in like seeing every single thing that could go wrong? Are you coming in with like, do you need more information, like a 5? And then I also talk about love languages and how you receive love and because if I come up to, a dad who sits there and he's very informative and he's a 5 and he's all in his head, but he's physical touch. Well, there's a lot going on at the birth. So I may like touch his shoulder and say, hey, so this is what's going on. Or if it's like gifts, I always like write down what their favorite coffee is. Maybe I'm going to DoorDash them something. Yeah. One will never know. I don't do it at every birth, but I kind of get to know that because I have a short period of time to get to know these, this family that's growing and they're inviting me in their birth space. Mm-hmm. Like that's that's a big deal. It's not like being invited to the wedding. Mm-hmm. Like you're going to be in the birth space. It's very, sacred time. And I don't take that for granted. So we get into all of that in the 36-week too, which kind of can prepare them going in like, okay, because I talk about fear, trauma, all of those things too, that can really affect it. So we go over lots of stuff, but a lot of that stuff I added on. And then the normal stuff, like what's an episiotomy? Some people don't even know what it is. Mm-hmm. Or are you going to circumcise? Do you even know why that's the question? Right. Or, just those types of things that maybe they haven't really talked about. Mm-hmm. And so you just start the conversation. Mm-hmm. So by the time they get to you at the 36-week appointment, they've either researched it, hopefully, discussed it with their partner, come to a conclusion, and have a decision.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I wish every doula and student midwife knew their Enneagram too. Because if they know, like, it is so stressful becoming a midwife. Like, it's just asks so much of you. And if you know your preceptor's Enneagram, you can be more empathetic too.
And where they go in stress.
Yeah.
Because it's probably where you're going to be for a short period of time is in the stress mode.
Yes.
Like, I go to a 1 in stress. Not helpful.
Interesting.
That's perfectionism. That's not good.
Yeah.
But I go to a 5 in health. My husband happens to be a 5. So does my son. So they really, it's real fun in my house because they're real chatty. No. But yeah, I enjoy it. And I met a girl who actually is going to do some Enneagram coaching with me. Awesome. You should totally have her on the podcast.
I would love that.
And she has a cool name because it was my maiden name.
Oh.
I know.
I've actually thought about doing like Enneagram for students. Like, if you're this, think about this, and then one for preceptors. Like, this is going to be your tendencies. Not very hopeful. Try to work on these things.
You don't need 2
on
sevens
social media.
Being like conquering the world.
No.
The good thing this is why I think most 7s get a bad rap. Okay.
Oh,
I know.
I love 7s.
I know. We're the life of the party. No, we enjoy that. But, I worked in corporate America for a really long time. Birth feeds my adrenaline. Like, boom.
Sure.
So, and my mom too, she was always up at 1 a.m. It was very difficult for me to sneak out of the house. And so she had like this weird thing that I think I have where I'm like, no, I can stay up for all hours of the night and be, just a couple shots of espresso,
Yeah.
or the bioplasma. I got it. I got it.
I was going to be like, can we talk about your adrenals? Oh,
I know. My adrenals are probably shot. It's fine. This is why I have my...
Good job getting bioplasma.
My water. I did the yeah.
You can add bioplasma to your water. Did you know that?
I was a straight shooter.
Well,
Yeah, my adrenals are... I think everybody who works in birth work probably has...
Yeah.
They need to heal their adrenals.
Probably so.
I'm young and vibrant, so it's fine.
So, yeah. No, we should just do that on another podcast.
Yeah. But I do go into that. And so hopefully it's good to know that you're a 2, wing 3.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I used to think I was a 5. I think I wanted to be a 5. But I'm like, no, I'm not at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But
I can go into 5, which is probably like, that's when I'm healthy and like I finish things and I'm organized. Like I always tell clients, and this is not a joke, but I'll probably either be early or on time for your prenatal because that's to make a good impression. I will always be on time for your birth. Postpartum, about 15 minutes late.
Yeah.
Or I'll just like push it back. Hey, you know what? We're going to do 30 minutes. But for the most part, we talk and we do all that. But it's like a running joke. I'm like, no, I'll be earlier on time for your birth for sure, and go from there. But, and it's also variable as far as like when birth starts.
True. But, okay, so let's talk about that really fast.
Yeah.
I feel like with out-of-hospital birth, it's a little different. I
already know what you're going to say.
For when to get them there. And every midwife has different preferences. Mm-hmm. And like,
but I have a goal.
Yes. Some are like, don't bring them here till they're almost pushing, which I don't feel that way because it's important for moms and babies to be monitored when they're in active labor.
Yeah.
Just
and
for
establish
safety.
Themselves and anchor themselves in the space.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, there's always those real precipitous bursts that
you can't help that.
You can't. You're like,
it happened in 2 hours. Yep. Yep.
So there's always those. But my goal is to get them established at their house in a pattern. And I think every doula, it's always like a math game. You're like, okay, they're 40 minutes away, but she's here. It's going to take her 20 minutes to get in the car. Does dad know where everything's at? Like, is he going to do this? So it's definitely, chess in your head. Mm-hmm. But I think even from the beginning, like I'm not a 4 minutes apart, 1 minute lasting an hour, because I've learned that to fail.
Yes.
In a lot of ways. Early on, I got people there too early.
Yep.
And that was really sad. Mm-hmm. Because you're just like, I'm sorry.
I was there too as a doula. I was like, well, they've been every 4 minutes for an hour, so
Yeah. And then I thought,
there's so much more to it.
I was like, who made that rule up?
I know.
Probably a man.
Wanting the Friedman's curve and to sit them on pit and then forcep them out. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are they all men?
No, that's just the way it was initially.
Oh, is that
Friedman's curve is named after a man?
People.
No.
I was like, yep, sure, those 3 men.
I mean, they were named after men, but
okay. Well, I'm just saying. It's getting late.
But it's true. I mean, so I would often get them there too early because everyone's different. But most first-time moms need several hours of them that close together. And then usually every 3. And then we're like 6, 7.
Right. And so I go based on sound.
Yeah. And that takes time to learn as a new, you have to be in the birth space for a while. Well, you also don't want it to be too late.
That's true. Well, and that's also
sweet spot.
That is true.
Not too early, not too late.
Because I did use sound for one, and I got her to the hospital too early.
Okay.
And I was real disappointed in myself.
Because some people just vocalize a lot.
Yeah, that's true. So, but I tried it now. That was early. That was like my 3rd or 4th birth. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not a failure. Maybe I have a little bit of trauma we can talk about later. But
I still remember the birth where I got her there too early, and then she ended up having intervention she didn't want. But we can,
yeah. So, but I try to get them established, and I also encourage my clients, hey, if it's in the middle of the day and you start having, symptoms, we can go down a list of early symptoms of labor starting. Just let me know.
Sure.
Then I can check in, kind of see how you're doing, whatever. And then if it's in the middle of the night and they're consistent, because it depends also if we're talking about a G1 or G2 or multip, because they all kind of respond differently. Mm-hmm. G2s can just be in complete denial and be like, I'm not starting into labor. And so I talk about that in the prenatal, don't be a hero. It's okay if you're not you literally hired me to wake me up and to let me know. If it's something where you think there's a pattern, call me.
Right.
That's fine. I'm on call for you for a reason. And G1s I might handle a little bit differently. And it just depends on the person. You have to be, if you've never seen them birth before, that's one thing. And I've had, first time moms, and I go over and I'm like, okay, she's kind of tilting where this is a little bit more active. And then we just kind of get a game plan and you kind of keep a straight face and a calm doula voice.
Right.
I haven't done my doula voice on here, but yeah, you just do your calm doula voice and be like, you're doing a great job. Okay, Dad. So, and then you kind of talk them through call the midwife.
Right.
Let them know. I always tell them the midwife's going to listen to you too. Don't try to hold it back. There's some moms who'll be like, I'm not feeling anything at all. And you're like, you're lying. I see you,
Yeah.
But that's just us as women sometimes. We're like, I don't want to inconvenience anyone.
I'm about to have the baby.
And you're like, well, eventually you're going to be inconvenienced.
Right.
There's going to be a baby coming out of your vagina.
In your car.
Yeah. So, we don't want that. But, so I kind of go off of sound. And my goal is to kind of get them closer, 6 to 7 centimeters. Do I know that? No. Do I check them? No.
Right.
But, that comes with just experience, too.
Yeah.
And Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
I'm like, Lord,
is it time?
I'm really going to need you to. And I jokingly say this to my friends because, I've been on call for a whole year. I'm tired.
I hear you.
And so I tell them, I'm like, no, I pray about Lord, I need you to let me know, if I need to stay up and watch this movie.
Right.
Or if I should go to bed. And he's good.
Mm-hmm.
He's good.
Yeah.
So I get naps and I'm like, I took a nap today for a reason. I knew it.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
So true.
But I've never met, maybe there are midwives out there that like to get people there when they're pushing, but I don't.
Not I.
No.
There are some, but last question for you.
Mm-hmm.
For a doula that has never attended a home or birth center birth, what does she need to know because she's about to? What would you tell her?
For a new doula?
Yeah. Or maybe she's done 100 hospital births.
Oh, that's a hard question.
It's hard to navigate, I think, the first time.
So one, the midwife is not the enemy. The midwife's probably built a better relationship with your client than you have.
Yeah. Hopefully. Hopefully she has good rapport and has spent like 12 hours with her already in all the appointments. But
make sure that when you are serving that mom, recognize you're also serving the partner. You don't take the place of the partner. This is a time for them both to be present because they've chose this so they could both be present in the birth, and it's not about you.
Yeah.
So find any way that, even if it's maybe he doesn't want to be totally hands-on, he or she doesn't want to be totally hands-on, well, that's fine. But give them something to champion them to be like a vital part. Understand you have medical professionals in the room.
Right.
Probably more than what you're used to. And maybe not. And that's okay too. But really read the room on where things are at, where you're at, where your stuff's at.
That's so true. Yeah, that's the worst is when I get to a home birth and there's nowhere for me to put stuff because the doula has stuff everywhere.
Yeah, no.
Like every surface. And
keep it neat.
I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me, and it's everywhere, and she's about to have the baby and there's nowhere for me to set up. I'm like, come on. And you took the best parking spot and I had to park down the street and lug all my stuff because the doula took the best parking spot.
No, I'm so sorry.
I need to do a blog on it.
Yeah.
How to be the best doula ever at a home birth. But.
Yeah. Well, I think it is important and to remind that. And even, since you talk about the parking at a home birth, don't park behind the midwife.
Right.
Because if something were to occur, guess who needs to get out first?
Yep.
Not you. Not you.
You're there to clean up.
But these are things that I do think about that I just now realized. Okay.
I didn't know either.
That I didn't even realize people don't think this way.
I attended a birth as a birth assistant, and the midwife was, about the doula. And I was like, oh, I never thought of that. I shouldn't have parked there. Park down the street. You don't have hardly any stuff.
Yeah. And important stuff, right?
Yeah, because
tennis balls are not as important as like
baby, and I'm like trying to plug in this oxygen tank and all this stuff. I'm like,
well, and keep it neat. Like I have never known a midwife that likes to work in mess, and I have been known to say this, like because I highly respect medical professionals who you got into this for a reason.
Yeah,
and especially midwives. I really do honor midwives. I really do.
Yeah,
and it's honoring people comes back to that, humbling yourself. You're a servant of your client. All of those things, right? But I have said this numerous times, like have you ever seen, and this might sound weird because, we do work for the client. And I always tell clients, I may work with this provider quite a bit, but I still work for you.
Right.
But the best team works together. So if you've ever seen Scandal.
I haven't. Sorry.
Okay. Well, there's a quote that the guy says, right, that's really close to the president. And he said, we serve at the pleasure of the president. And I always say we serve at the pleasure of the midwife.
Yeah.
Not just because the client hired us, but when you're in that space, you want your client to have the best care. So get out of the freaking way.
Yeah.
There's definitely a time to be around the client. There's definitely a time when midwife comes in to shine in the sense of like all the stuff that they hired you to do.
Right.
Like, help her push her baby out or make sure that even if like dad is catching or whatever the case is that you're there helping him. Nobody wants to like catch a baby on their own.
Yeah.
And that's not our job.
Don't drop the baby,
So when the baby's born, step away.
Sure.
Go like get some juice. She's going to need it. They're going to have to birth the placenta. What are you going to do? What are you doing? Unless there's something specifically there that they want you holding their hand.
Right.
When the baby's born, step away, get out of the way, go clean up a little bit, start the laundry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just be a team player.
Right. That's true. And even like...
I don't think anything I said is out of scope. No.
Staying around too, like making sure she drinks and stuff. I can't tell you how many leave like right after placenta.
What?
Yeah.
No, I say 2 to 3 hours after the birth.
That's awesome.
And if the birth is super precipitous, maybe I feel a little bad and I stay like longer.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But no, they need to okay, can I just say this? Okay, because people don't know this apparently. After the baby's born, doula, go get juice, make sure they have juice in their thing or go right to the refrigerator, get water, some sort of electrolyte, get all that ready. And then figure out what they're going to have because home births are different. Like you need to have that conversation at 36 weeks. Like, what are you going to eat afterwards?
Right.
Make sure it's high in protein. Get working on that. Start cleaning up.
Yeah.
Then come back and you can kind of be around, but don't just like stand around and leave. People leave. No.
Yeah.
No.
No, I love that. What you're saying, all the drinks and all the things.
And put all your stuff away.
And
Nobody wants your rebozo hanging around like on the corner.
Like just having them drink. Often we help with breastfeeding, but I can't tell you how helpful that is because they're going to be able to pee quicker. Like,
yeah.
Well, we're not going to be sitting on the toilet for hours. They can't pee. And they do need it to feel better.
Right, which is the doula's job. The doula's there for them.
You should write another blog about it.
People don't do that? This probably shouldn't be recorded because my facial expressions.
No, it's going to be the best. Thank you for coming on the show.
You're very welcome.
Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. Everything is The Praying Doula.
Awesome.
So Instagram is The Praying Doula. PrayingDoula.com. Jessica at The Praying Doula is my email direct.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'm in North Fort Worth.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica, for driving all the way.
Yeah, it's amazing. You're so fun to talk to.
Awesome. We'll have to have you back. Talk about Enneagram and trauma.
Oh, yeah. That'll be fun.
Let us know what you want to hear about. And if you've made it all the way to the end, please leave us a review. We would so appreciate that. Share about it. You can find like more updates and things like that on my Instagram or Facebook. It's at Bethany Stricker Midwifery on Instagram, Bethany Stricker Midwifery Care on Facebook, and then just BethanyStricker.com for website stuff. And yeah, make sure you subscribe on Spotify or Apple so you can get notifications for further podcasts. Thanks for listening. Bye.